Your Mama's Kitchen is brought to you by Rivian.
I learned that, tomorrow, like food, is not promised. You got to make the most of what you have. Make it a meal and be nourished by it. Sometimes you're nourished by the absence of things. Again, you're eating lunch meat sandwiches and, what are those dinners that you put in the oven? Those were treats.
Oh, TV dinners.
TV dinners. That was a treat. I remember being grateful for the flavors, not for the portions.
Hello, hello. Welcome back to Your Mama's Kitchen. This is a place where we explore how we are shaped as adults by the kitchens that we grew up in as kids. Not just the food, but all the stuff that happens there. The laughter, the sibling rivalries, the secrets shared at the kitchen table, the homework. I'm Michele Norris, and my guest today is Erika Alexander. You know her. You have seen her in several of her iconic roles as Maxine Shaw in Living Single, as Detective LaToya in Get Out, Cousin Pam in The Cosby Show, and Coraline in American Fiction. But she's not just an actress. She is also activist, a podcast host. She's an entrepreneur and a producer and a director. She produced the fantastic John Lewis documentary that was released back in 2020. She co-wrote a graphic novel. You should check that out. And she even created and co-wrote an incredible true crime podcast. It's called Finding Tamika. And she stars in season 3 of Apple TV's Invasion, which just premiered. And she's working on another show that's going to be on NBC. Girl, what don't you do?
Obviously rest.
I mean, the only thing we left out was chief bottle washer in there or something.
Hey, let me tell you something. I do a little of that too.
You got to be busy to stay busy.
The hustle is real. I'm gratified. It's a 42-year career you're talking about. So I learned that you cannot, people say stay in your lane. I said, I'm an off-road vehicle. That's how I pay the rent.
And really today you have to work across several platforms and have all, in my world of cooking, all 6 burners going at the same time. And you definitely do. I am so glad you're with us.
Thank you, Michele. By the way, I'm a fan. I've always been. I love what you do. I love who you are. I love how beautiful you are. I love your presence in this world.
Oh my goodness.
You are aspirational and inspirational all at once. So thank you for the invitation.
And I feel the exact same way about you. I got to meet you a couple of years ago in California. Right. And I kind of embarrassed myself because I got all like googly and wobbly and noodly because I was so excited to finally meet you because, I have been I've been riding your train for a really long time.
It felt very easy and very natural. And like I said, to be invited here means that I must have made some impact.
Yeah.
So I was like, she wants me to come on the show. Perfect.
You made a strong impact because we met at Leading Women Define. It's a conference for women in California. And you told your origin story. And I thought, she's got to come on the show because it was just so interesting to hear about growing up in the Southwest. And I thought you had great stories to tell. And so I wanted to be able to share it with our listeners. And so here you are. And that's how we begin in this podcast. We always ask people to go back down memory lane and talk about the kitchens they grew up in, what they remember. And in your case, it's interesting because it's almost like out of a novel. You grew up for the first several years of your life in a motel called the Starlight Inn.
Mm-hmm. Starlight Motel. Yes, I did. I'm from Arizona. I was originally born in Winslow, Arizona. And then my parents moved to Flagstaff. They are both from the Southwest. I'm one of 6. Both my parents were orphans, and I spent the first 11 years of my life in a hotel called Starlight off of Route 66. And my father was an itinerant preacher, and my mother was an educator and also a minister in like a music education ministry. My father was one of those types of people who had been ordained since he was 6 years of age. And both my parents were orphans. So a lot of our lives is very Dickensian, and it's memorable for it's what it did not have. So what we have and what we had, we remember very well because we didn't have much.
When I listened to you tell that story again, that you grew up in the Starlight Motel off Route 66, it sounds like the beginning of a song sung by Rosetta Tharpe. And And you stand in your story, despite the difficulties that you faced, you tell that story, it seems willingly.
I do, because it's level sets. Some people can see you. I've been in showbiz since I was 14. People have a projection of who you are. And I say that, and then it sort of reframes it. So we can now have a conversation, and maybe they can also, give me a space to be myself, as opposed to some kind of character they might have seen, or have some kind of special, I don't know, luck around me. I'm very much like them. And one of the things you said about I tell it willingly, because I am a storyteller. My parents were, obviously, being pastors, preachers. But just this year, I got honored with Storyteller of the Year from the Moth. And I sang my song about Arizona with my niece in the style of an old country song. And it says, I was born in Arizona, yes, off Highway 66, but don't want to be associated with those cowboy hicks. My Baptist daddy turned to Lutheran while mama paid the rent. We get older and wiser, but the money's always spent. So I always wanted to create a song. And that's how I did my acceptance speech. So it's funny you should say so. You'd be smart enough to figure that out. But you're the first one who've ever said that. So it's funny.
You know that introduction I read where I listed all of 18, 50, 11 things that you do? I think you're going to be adding to that soon, because I see a musical career ahead of you. Either cutting records or on Broadway or something, because you have bars.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I am taking some vocal lessons, and I was taking it just as an actress to make sure I had some respiratory issues, and it was messing up my voice. And I've always loved to sing. I come from a singing family. All my nieces sing. My mother sang. She put a piano in that Roach motel that we were living in, and a chandelier and curtains that were, red velvet with golden tassels, because she wanted us to be cultured. And so music is a very large part of who we are. And plus, that's how they literally sang for their suppers. So you never know, but I appreciate you saying it.
Always write your future in pencil, because you do never know.
Oh, come on. Oh, that's a bar right there. Come on. I love that. Oh.
So introduce me to a young Erika Alexander. What was it like for you? Were you with your siblings, your 6 siblings, running up, the 6 of you at least, were you running up and down the hallways in the hotel? Were you playing in the parking lot? Paint a picture for me of what your childhood was like there. And then if you ran in to get, a snack from the kitchen, or your mom called you to come in to eat, what was the kitchen like at a motel?
Sure. So we rented the shack that was offside of the hotel because it was a long-term place. And it was a white and turquoise wood house with 2 bedrooms, one for the 5 of us at the time. The 6th sister hadn't showed up yet, and my mother's and father's bedroom. And it had wood floors. I always hated wood floors because our wood floors were like kind of the ones you might see in a slave plantation. Mm. They weren't nice. I used to always wonder why people like wood floors, because you'd get splinters in ours. Mm-hmm, and it was just, those boards were just over the ground. There was no insulation. And you have to understand, that's really harsh in the cold of the mountains of Arizona, Flagstaff, Arizona. So that's what I remember. I remember how simple it was. And we had, in our view, Mount Eldon. So looking at it now, I think of how people pay for these types of views. But for us, it was that mountain was kind of, it watched over us, Mount Eldon. And then the San Francisco peaks were just to the left of it. And that's how it was. And you didn't just run into the house and get a snack, because it wasn't like that. We didn't have much food, and you had to ask permission to eat. And you had to ask permission to get anything. So we did get, we could eat a little cereal if there was any there. But my mother did most of the cooking And it wasn't like we had a house full of snacks or anything.
Yeah. I should have been careful in asking that, because I shouldn't always assume that this whole notion of a snack is kind of American, because most people in the world don't snack. Describe the kitchen. What did it look like?
It was a very small kitchen. It was linked to a small dining room, and it had a sink that looked over Highway 66, so you could see all the trucks going by, and the railroad. The railroad ran right next to Highway 66, right through Flagstaff, Arizona. And there were a couple of cabinets, and there was a laundry room in the back we didn't have a washer and dryer. It never worked. So it was very cold space. And there was a door that went straight through there. You could either go to my parents' room from one side or the other. And it was a small little passage to their room. And so that's what it looked like. And I spent a lot of time in that kitchen because, from a very young age, we all did chores. And I remember climbing up on chairs to push dishes, into the cabinet. So, and standing on the chair to wash dishes.
So your mother is Sammy.
Sammy Jean Alexander, yes.
And your father was the Right Reverend Robert Alexander.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
I did a little research.
I see that.
Did they both cook, or was that your mother's domain?
They both cooked.
Mm-hmm.
So my mother did, I think, the majority of cooking. Like she would always tell us, she might call and say, take out the chicken to thaw, because everything was frozen. Nothing was fresh. She would take it out to thaw and we'd put it in water or something. And my father would cook, not a lot, but he knew how to cook. And he would make spaghetti and those types of things. But my mother did most of it because we ate a lot of Mexican food, enchiladas and that type of stuff. Not the stuff you see in LA, but, fried bread from the Navajo and enchiladas, a lot of native food.
Was that what your community was like when you went to school? Did you grow up with that kind of regional diversity?
We were the only Black family in our school for a very long time.
How was that for tough. You and your siblings?
It sucked. At the time, I didn't really realize how much till you start to grow up and realize that people make groups and start to self-segregate and create the type of segregation that existed in the world. We were fast, though. I hate to say it was not a stereotype. We would go and break each other's records. The Alexander boys and girls were, at least me and my sister, we were faster than anybody else without trying. And the boys were champion runners. And,
so I'm just going to clarify that, because you said when you were fast, that could have been interpreted two ways. That you were fast because you ran track, which you did, or you were fast because people were chasing you on the way home. And just want to make sure that people understand that you were out there winning ribbons, that you were winning trophies, that you were running on a track.
Coming in first, winning ribbons and trophies and being good at PE.
How did your mom and dad get to Arizona?
My father was born in New Mexico. And he had been there with his mother was I don't know, she did a lot of things. You know how Black people are. We do a lot of things, know one thing, but she had a little diner, it said. And she would go back and forth to the deep South, more New Orleans and whatnot, for Goofados. And she would get people to come into her diner. She needed a stronger potion. Because she was into...
Did you say, what was that word to go back to get what?
It's called Goofados.
Goofados. Okay. I was in my head, I was like, no, let me just ask.
And she was into Black magic and whatnot.
Okay. All right.
And she would leave my father a lot. She was not a very responsible parent. So my father would be left on the streets. She would just leave him. And he had a grandmother that he could have stayed with, but she just really wasn't. Sounds like she might have an addiction problem. The grandmother, though, when he was born, said that he was going to be a man of God. And so he had been ordained by her church as a boy preacher at 6 years of age. So he was a prodigy who would go around and preach. And also, even though he had a crazy life. And then my mother, adopted mother, made her like the choir director. And she said, they put me on a chair, Erika, at 4 years of age, and I would direct their little church choir. And so they met at a revival when my father came to preach the revival at 13 years of age. My mother was choir director and pianist at 11. That's the first time they met, and they married at 19 and 20.
Wow. That's a hell of a story. That's incredible. And you said that their lives were Dickensian. Your dad was almost like the Artful Dodger, figuring out how to get by.
Yeah.
On his own.
And that's how he stayed in life. That's a great example. Yes, the Artful Dodger.
How did they get to the hotel? How did they get to the Starlight?
That's just one of their many travels. So they married, I'm fourth. Okay, so they had many years to go before they got to Starlight. I was born in Winslow, Arizona. The Starlight Hotel was in Flagstaff, Arizona. So as itinerant preacher, that means that you don't have a church home. And so you're invited, and he did a lot of revivals. She would, like a tag team, she would play the piano, and then he would preach, and they would cast out demons and devils and sleep in people's garages. And they would take up an offering for the young couple, just enough maybe for them to get to the next town. Or he would take up a temporary job as a Pullman porter. She would clean houses. Whatever she had to do. They were both going to Bible college, and they got there. She definitely got her degree. He did too, from Bible college. And they just traveled around, and eventually they got to Flagstaff because it was just the next stop. They were in Winslow, where they had cut off. He removed a chain from the door because the people said that it was the church was possessed by a demon. And I said, Mom, what did y'all do? And he says, Robert just went and got a chain cutter, cut off the lock, and then said, praise the Lord, it's over. And so they were there for a little while, and that's where me and my sister were born. She's 2 years apart. They were there for 4 years. But then after that kind of ended. And they went on to Flagstaff, and that's the first place they landed, at the Starlight Hotel. And they stayed there for 11 years.
Just cutting the chain makes me think the hardest jails to escape are gateless. Sometimes we are victims of our own,
you are dropping the bars. My God.
That all these people are afraid to go in a building, and then here he comes and boom. You said your parents would cast out demons. Is that something that you'd hear about at the kitchen table, or is that something you actually witnessed?
I did not witness it. My mother talked a lot about their early years and demon possession was big back in the day. Was.
What'd you talk about? What'd you hear from her about that?
Listen, for demon possessions, normally, you just can't just take them on right away, usually, which I think they did. In the church, it was a lot of healing. My father was one of those healing pastors. You usually had to fast for 3 days and get a group of women to fast, and then you'd come back and pray over that person because you'd have the strength. So and bring oil for anointing and all that. So just like you see in The Exorcist in Catholicism, you didn't usually go to a demon and just do it. But as for demon possession and those types of things, it was talked about all the time. Again, my life feels very much like, I don't know, like, I call it was Southern Gothic. These stories everyone told. I spent most of my time in church, like my other siblings, and they told those stories all the time, like it was no thing.
Mm-hmm. And I'm asking you this not through judgment at all, because I know people who are Pentecostal, they sometimes don't talk about this because they sometimes face judgment, because people don't, understand, what happens in the church in a process like that. And so it's just interesting if you were willing to talk about it, because a lot of people aren't.
Oh, yeah. No, my mother's very proud of that. I mean, I don't think my mother has any sense that she should be ashamed of this. She's a godly person and this is her life, and the type of demon possession that she experienced also comes in the family because the grandmother, meaning my father's mother, it was said she died from demon possession, that because of her going back and forth to the South, came back one day all wrapped up around herself and barking like a dog. And they had to go get the person who became their godparent, their godfather, to come and pray over her. And he, cleared himself and fasted. And then they brought her out of it after prayer. And then he warned her. He said, "Sister, if you go back, the Lord told me to tell you that you will come back in a box.
Don't go back.
You will come back in a box." And she said, "Nowhere. I'm not going to. I'm not going to." And my father's last, one of his last memories of his mother was her going into a red Cadillac with her boyfriend, Red, and pulling out and him begging, "Please don't go." And she said, "Don't worry, Robert, I'll be back." And 2 weeks later, she came home in a box.
Oh my goodness.
So I think she told us that too, for us to know that for her, God was real and that their wages of sin was death and that you should not mess around with things you don't understand and that this world had different dimensions that weren't always working for us. And I think to a family in poverty, those messages rang real. They were true because she couldn't watch over us and we had to be. It kind of made we self-policed because we really did believe in demons. We believed in all that. I know I did. I don't know so much anymore, but then it was how she watched us.
Your family wound up moving from Arizona to Philadelphia. How old were you when that happened?
7th, 8th grade.
7th, 8th grade. Okay. And that's right around the time that you started acting also.
Yes, exactly.
Was that through school?
No, my mother put me in a summer program. It was one of our chances. She didn't have a lot of money and she would try to give us, again, cultural opportunities. She really believed that, I think, she didn't say this, but I think she thought that if her children were cultured and could speak well, that people would be kind to us and that they wouldn't think they were just any old Black people, Black kids,
Well,
and
I think this was the woman who put the curtains and the candelabra
That's
out,
right. She had the chandelier, she had the curtains and all of that. But she's partly raised by the richest woman in town. She happened to be in poverty, but she was raised with elocution lessons and pronunciation and I mean, she sang German opera and went to NAU. She spent her little money to get classes. She was an educator. She understood the power of education. So when we were in Philadelphia, it was my time to get a class. And she said, she saw me perform in 4th grade. I played Groundhog Day. I was in a play about Groundhog Day and I played a lawyer.
You played a lawyer? Oh my goodness. Of all things, you played a lawyer.
I was defending Groundhog Day. And she remembered that. And she thought that I liked acting. I never said otherwise. I wanted to be a scientist. I never really thought about acting. But she put me in a summer program at New Freedom Theater. It was a 6-week program. And in the 5th week, a movie came to town. They said that we should audition because if we didn't want to be an actor, it was a great opportunity. And my mother taught us also, if you had an opportunity, you should take it. And I did. And I showed up at 5:00 in the morning. I was second in line. By the end of the day, they had handed me the script for the lead role and said they wanted me to read that script. Several auditions later and 3, 4, 5 screen tests, they cast me in the lead role of My Little Girl Immersion Ivory film with James Earl Jones and Geraldine Page.
Wow.
That's exactly how quickly my life changed.
Your first film was a Merchant Ivory film.
Yes.
Did you always have that voice? Because you have a great voice.
Oh, you have a great voice.
But you have this timbre in your voice. It's a beautiful voice. And sometimes when you have a deep voice like that, you develop it later. But sometimes you as a kid sound like you've been, smoking cigarettes and drinking whiskey.
It's gotten deeper. It's always been unusual, I think. I never thought about my voice till my niece showed up, and she has a very unusual voice. And suddenly I could hear what people heard in me, in her. Because if you didn't hear her, you just would turn and say, who's got that voice? But apparently in my family, which is known for singing and known for pastors, we have unique voices, and I've got one of them.
Yeah, you do. You do. I'm going to continue with the acting in a minute, but I did read in my dossier about you that you at one point wanted to be a scientist and you wanted to study muscular dystrophy.
I did.
Which is so honorable, but I was just wondering, is there a specific reason that you wanted to study muscular dystrophy?
Yes, because I watched the Jerry Lewis telethon.
Okay. All right.
And I would sit there as a child
because that was on Labor Day weekend
all the time. And my mother's, it was appointment viewing. We would sit there. My mother would say, "Come on, Jerry, you can get through it. You'll never walk alone." And we would sit there, and I would be like, "The world's waiting for me to become a scientist, and I'm going to find a cure for muscular dystrophy." And that was my goal. And because I wanted to be Jerry's champion for those children.
That's
kids. Why. Jerry's kids. I didn't know anybody with muscular dystrophy, but we had grown up in a world full of people who were disabled. My parents were always going to pray for people who were impoverished and or disabled and or mentally ill.
Now, I have no doubt that if you had become a scientist, that you would have been fantastic. But I'm glad that you took a sharp right turn and decided to pursue acting, because we are all the better for it. So that first film, My Little Girl, then where did you go from there?
I graduated Philadelphia High School for Girls. I was going to NYU. And 2 weeks into getting there, Peter Brook, the great Peter Brook, the English director, came and he cast me in a play, an 8-hour play called The Mahabharata with the Royal Shakespeare Company. I went around the world with this troupe from 28 different countries. I was the only American on it, and went around the world. And then we did the movie in Paris. And that's what I did. I dropped out of college and did that from 17 to 18. I just kept working in all these different places.
And at some point, you're becoming the family's major breadwinner, because you're earning coins doing all this work. What was that like for you? Did that add a level of pride, but also a special responsibility because you were sending checks home?
Yeah, not so much sending checks home, but making sure that my needs weren't theirs. Like I could pay for myself in life. And then after a while, what happens, you just start paying for things. My mother never asked for those things. So my father got sicker, and she wasn't more distracted. She just had a bigger burden. I still had 2 younger sisters younger than me. There still were houses and things that would break. And I would just be like, "No, Ma, I got it." She hated that. She didn't want that at all. But I'm very stubborn. And I wanted to make sure that I was, not only helpful, but it gave me great pride, as you say. After a while, I did start to do larger things. My father was at his church. After he graduated the theological seminary, they sent him to East New York, one of the most rough places you could be sent in the 90s or 80s and 90s, 80s. And it was mostly Puerto Rican neighborhood. Most people had their churches. It's a place for a young pastor to build a congregation, not for an older pastor with heart failure. And then he died, and it was a long death because he had his first heart attack at 35 in Arizona. So it was just a matter of time before he just, couldn't take it anymore. His body couldn't take it. But he was at the parsonage, and we were living in the parsonage, and my family wouldn't have had anywhere to go. So I just bought it. The church let me buy it.
You bought the parsonage? Wow.
Yes, for like $69,000 at the time. That's what the people who donated, this little white women, donated to the church, but they let me buy it at cost. So then we had some place to live, and then the house in Philadelphia needed to be renovated. So I paid for that. So that's what kept happening, Michele. It just was one of these things where I just wanted to be helpful. And that is its own burden after a while, because really what it became the burden was the fact that people resent your good fortune. And there was a lot of unspoken resentment. And I've talked about it with my siblings, from my siblings who kind of abandoned me. And it was very difficult to live in that world.
It's hard because they think that you're sedity. Girl, you changed. You're brand new. You're smelling yourself. You know, there's all these kind of things that you hear. There was this comedy, was it with Cedric, the entertainer, where he goes home, he's become an entertainer, and he goes home and everybody's giving him the business, and he has such a hard time because they think he's grand. But there was a lot of business that was done in that film, because for people who have ridden that escalator, you know, up and out of their community, it is hard to go back.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to be growing up and being college age and paying for things that your friends cannot afford, but you want to stay with them. You want to be with them. So you end up paying for lunches and all of those things. And then it goes on and on and on. But again, you don't know how people are receiving it, you know, how difficult it could be for a boyfriend to be on that end, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah. How'd you take care of yourself in that period?
I didn't. Absolutely not. I'm barely taking care of myself now. I'm not. I'm dead serious. I didn't know anything was wrong. I just kept trying to do more, trying to prove to them that I hadn't changed, that I was benevolent and humble and all the things that my mother taught me to be, to prove to them that, look, I'm not special. There's nothing special about me. See, you can have this. You can, you know, I have my friends who have careers now got it because they came to LA and got a chance to be on Living Single. Yvette Lee Bowser put them down in parts, featured parts. They started coaching, dialogue coaching, all these young stars that became big stars and leading them to Oscars and things like that. They're happy for it. And now we're grown up. They're cool, but it wasn't always easy. And it was strange for me to feel that no matter what I did, it seemed to put me in hot water and deny me the love that I so sought.
Oh, this is hard to hear you say that.
Yeah.
So the time that you were actually blossoming, at least outwardly, that's what it looked like. It sounds like it was a pretty lonely time for you.
Oh, it was awful. It was awful. It is awful. I think that, you know, people say, you know, it's just difficult being the one for whatever reason. And you're grateful for it. You don't want to become jaded or closed off, but you almost need to in order to endure and survive and thrive. The idea of having to protect myself, to have armor to protect myself, came way later, because nobody was speaking to Black people like that, let alone Black women. Come on, we just barely learning how to be for ourselves as opposed to everyone else. It's the same for me, but then that just made it a little worse.
All right. Game day is back, and my go-to for making it stress-free, Whole Foods Market. Seriously, my entire game plan now is taken care of in just one stop. I swing by and I head straight for the prepared food sections. And that's where I can find these incredible heat and eat boneless chicken bites. They're a total crowd pleaser. They're ready in minutes. They go with all kinds of sauces. To balance it out, I always get a classic shrimp cocktail platter. It's beautiful. It's all laid out. All you have to do is take the cover out and set it on the table. Zero work for me. That's a good thing. And for bigger appetites, their made-in house marinated wings are a must. And I always have a box of the 365 by Whole Foods Market frozen appetizers. In my family, we call them apps. I like samosas. I like the mac and cheese bites in the freezer for a last-second touchdown, especially if sometimes you don't think you're having people over and ding dong, suddenly people are over to watch the game. You just go to the freezer and pull those out. I fill a cooler with Oktoberfest beers and non-alcoholic options from Athletic Brewing so everyone can cheer and everyone is satisfied. And the best part, you don't even have to leave your house to get all of this. You can get everything delivered right to your door at a window of your choosing. a window that's convenient to you, and schedule a pickup time if that works better. So you just go to the store and everything is waiting for you. It all works. It's the ultimate pre-game strategy. It's time to get ready for kickoff, host game day with help from Whole Foods Market. We all know that food waste is bad for the planet, but that doesn't mean we're ready to start a compost pile or we're okay with having a smelly fruit fly condo compost pail on the counter. That's why I am so into the Mill Food Recycler. The whole idea is to make keeping food out of the trash as easy as dropping it into the trash. I just add my scraps, and I mean like almost anything. I mean anything from chicken wing bones to avocado pits to cantaloupe rinds, and Mill runs automatically while I sleep. I can keep filling it for weeks, and it never smells. What really surprises me is the peace of mind. I used to feel guilty every time I tossed out wilted spinach or half-eaten leftovers. Now I just drop them into the bin, open the lid, drop them in, and I know that they're going to a better place. You can use the grounds in your garden or feed them to your chickens, but me, I have Mill get them to small farms for me so farmers can grow more food. You just send those grounds off to farms in little boxes that Mill can provide, and they will turn that back into real food for real animals. That's such a good feeling. It's a full circle moment that I didn't know that I needed. You can have your own full circle moment. Try Mill risk-free and get $75 off at mill.com/YMK podcast. That's mill.com/YMK podcast. When you were on Living Single, did you all have each other? Because it appears, at least in watching it, and can I just say that that still holds up? I mean, it's still, I will find it on TV to this day and sit down. If I'm having some kind of day, I just watch Living Single. It's like a glass of Chardonnay. I'm just going to watch Living Single. You know, it's going to make me feel good. I know I'm going to laugh. I know I'm going to say, were our collars really that big back then?
Yes, they were.
I know that I will have all kinds of running commentary, and I still will go back and watch it. But you all looked, I mean, talk about ensemble television. It looked like you really had a close family unit. And I've gotten to know Yvette Lee Bowser, the creator, and she got that strong mama bear energy. So I assume that that's very much what was going on. Am I correct in that assumption that you all had a fairly close unit?
I think it's partly correct. Shout out to Yvette Lee Bowser for the enduring resonance of Living Single.
Yes.
Definitely, we loved each other, but you're together all that time. You know how it is. The last thing you want to do is hang out. But we did hang out and do birthdays together and that type of thing. But I don't think I told them much of my life. The person I got closest with was Kim Coles. We had a natural sort of, synergy. And I got close to her. Dana was in a whole nother world musically. So when she left, she became Latifah. And Latifah is different from Dana on set because where she's ruling as queen, they don't have the same rules as we do in terms of time. And it's like, when does the party start? When I get there. When are you going to get there? You say 8, you come in at 2. It's like that. And so it's difficult. I'd say that we had great respect, mutual respect for each other, love. We hung out enough for it to feel like a unit. But looking back, I do believe that a lot of us, we all as individuals had some issues with really kind of creating the type of trust where you could rest and be safe. It was respectful. There was always a layer of that. And I don't know how to really define it, because right now we're doing the Reliving Single podcast. And I have to say, a lot of the feelings are coming up, and I'm realizing, I started the show, Living Single, and just 2 months before my father had passed. So I was cut off from my emotions, and no wonder
you were the walking wounded right there.
Yeah, I don't remember even the first season as much.
And you played the strong person. You played the intellectual. You played the one that everybody turned to. Maxine, how are we going to solve this problem? So,
no, that was Khadijah. I played the straw that stirs stirs it up. I just happened to be full of solutions as Maxine Shaw, but she was not. They're very dependable. I mean,
That's interesting because I always saw her as a fixer, but
we'll see. But that's interesting. That is interesting. Why?
Because she had a lot of sass, because you were confident. You walked into the room. You didn't walk in. You were bursting into the room all the time.
Exactly.
And you were argumentative, and
that's true. And that's partly down to me too. I have a lot of energy. I have a lot of boy energy. I came from the mountains. I ran with the boys. I got scarred all over. I wasn't interested in being a girl. Like all of this stuff, whatever. Me and Latifah, we have the same, tomboy attitude where we're like, okay, finish this makeup, please, so we can leave. I don't even look in the mirror before I leave. Sometimes I look and I'm horrified as how I going out through the door to this day. I guess I was a fixer in my home, but they were so strong individually. I didn't necessarily have to be the fixer there, but inside of the character, she certainly had remedies. So I can totally see that. But it was the Khadijah character that she cared. She was sentimental. I don't think Max was sentimental. Yeah. She was sort of just like, okay, good, whatever, bye. I mean, she was so selfish.
She was a little selfish. Yes, she definitely.
She's very selfish. She was.
So did you have any idea, you know about it, you've talked about it on the podcast, you've talked about it elsewhere, the Maxine effect, that as many as 1 in 3 women of color who've gone to law school cite her as an early influence? That is incredible. I mean, that is incredible. Nuts. Talking about sending ripples out into the world. Did you have any idea at the time that you were having that kind of impact on people?
No.
And what does it mean to know that now?
I'm grateful. I just think that comedy does that stuff comedy can do what nothing else can do. We don't all cry at the same time for the same reason, but we all laugh together. When a joke hits, everyone laughs at the same time. And it may be a slow rumbling as we all get it, and then it's electric. And it's kind of like we don't all agree about the song, but for the most part, if something's funny, we laugh like, ah! And so I think it has something to do with what comedy can only do. And once it's in your heart, you just have that good feeling that once you see that person, you go, oh, that's joy. They're connected to joy. They're connected to joy. And that character is connected to a lot of people's joy and growing up nostalgia and all that. And I'm proud of that. The fact that Maxine Shaw, attorney at law, resonates is a powerful sort of collaboration between me and Yvette Lee Bowser. I did not know who Yvette Lee was when I started that role, and I actually didn't know her during the filming of it. For 5 years, I didn't know who she was. I played a part, and I would learn about the character. Each show, I'd get a new puzzle, that would tell me more about the character. But I came fully formed as Erika Alexander. Erika Alexander had been built by Whoopi Goldberg, Felicia Rashad, Gloria Foster, Cecily Tyson, Philadelphia High School for Girls, New Freedom Theater, Preacher Father, Mother, Orphans, all that. I came in knowing that they told me at Freedom Theater, they said, you didn't have the right not to be good. You had to show up. At Girls High, they warned us. They said, you will compete against men and we expect you to win. I mean, that's just what it was. So I knew how to play that part. I didn't need anybody to tell me. I just needed her words and her to evolve and tell me who she was. But I am playing my very best Erika Alexander as informed by all these other people. And then I find out who she is. So I think that over time, through the character and the love of living single, there's a lot of young women from Stacey Abrams to Ayanna Pressley to, who've said it really mattered. And they looked at it and it made them feel like, you know what, that person, I could be that person. But I also want to say this, the dark skin and the new lock, Bob, that's here, Brooklyn, Deborah Hairbay. And all the Jamaicans who used to dress me. And
the New Lock Bob was iconic.
It was iconic, but I was trying to grow out my hair from a different part. And she said, don't worry, I got you. And it's yarn. She said, it's going to look older and it's going to mimic locks. And I didn't know. I got the part with that hairstyle in. Like I said, it just was a confluence of things that came together, bam, to make the look. And the persona is mine, except the part is someone else's. And so I'm using it as a collaboration. I think that at that time, if you look at maybe when those people might have gone to school, it really mattered to see somebody with natural hair.
Yeah.
And that attitude of like, I can hang with the boys. I'm not going to apologize for any of this. I can sleep with them or not. It wasn't, by the way, a lot of Black women especially were bogged down by religiosity and expectation. Not Maxine Shaw. She was like this. So, okay, bye. I mean, it literally was like, I'm for self. To be selfish, unapologetically, but also
she put her life mask on first. She was
first. I'm playing a character that I am yet not.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. That's deep.
That's where she's different. She's projected into the future. She, to me, is an example of Afrofuturism.
Wow.
We were all wanting to be her. Me too. I think I was her in a lot of ways, like I said, but not in that way. I'm still not like that because I have a different story than Maxine Shaw.
See, I think that's why people responded to her, all those things, but they were also responding to you, what you brought to that character. Because there were other people on TV who didn't necessarily ignite an army of attorneys who marched off to law school, you know? So, you know, you should take credit for that because that's for real.
Thank
now,
you.
maybe you
I
can help us.
that.
There's this debate about whether Friends was actually an offshoot of Living Single. Because Living Single came first. And then, there's this other show that has 3 guys,
Michele,
3 women.
Is there really a debate? Because it definitely is.
Okay.
It is.
You know,
that's a settled law.
That is settled law. Asked and answered. Settled law.
That's right.
Yes.
That Supreme Court can't change that. It's true. It's very true.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. You know, Yvette knows it's true.
Yeah.
We certainly know it's true. It wouldn't be the first time that that's happened. And I think here's the problem. It's not that there's a template that people borrow or, you know, whatever to do their thing, appropriate, or that type of thing. So the problem is the branding and marketing that goes into building the other platform never will ever match anything from the program or project that it gained leverage from. And that's the problem. That's why I really have a conversation about even how we say, people say it was a Black show. I said, there's no such thing. There's a show with a Black cast. We can't say that because then they're the ones who created that. I always said, was the Jefferson a Black show? Was the Cosby Show a Black show? What's happening? Was even Fred Sanford and Son a Black show? It was a show with Red Fox in it.
And the numbers suggested that a whole lot of people who were not Black were watching.
That part, because there was only 3 networks you could be in, and they were all on the same, right next to MASH, you know, you'd see whatever. But when we started having so-called Black shows, it's put us in the cultural ghetto, and we never recovered. And somebody recently asked me, yeah, Erika, but isn't there a way that, you know, having something that's ours, you know, uniquely ours, and sort of labeling it, you know, sort of defining it that way is empowering? And I said, okay, fine. Let's say Black basketball then. Let's say Black football.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say Black sport. If that's the case, where you're saying because it's got, you know, a heavy amount of Black people in it or whatever, I said, let's own it. Let's own it all. You don't say that. Let's go watch our Black basketball game. You don't. And that, to me, is the damage. It tells people you don't have to invest in it. You don't have to spend money to
make sure you have the widest possible audience. Widest, not whitest, widest.
There you go. You said the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we can put it only in Philadelphia, DC, Atlanta, whatever, and call it a day. So it limits their thinking, as opposed to thinking, I got Friday nights to sell. And on Friday nights is all of this. But again, I'm getting ready to be on a show where it's going to be a uniquely mostly Black cast. And it's a Tina Fey comedy. And no one would ever call it a Black show.
So what did you learn? We talked, you had several kitchens. We never talked about your kitchen when you moved to Philadelphia, but I want to go back to that kitchen at the Starlight Hotel. What did you learn in that kitchen that has helped you find the success that you enjoy today?
I learned that, tomorrow, like food, is not promised. You got to make the most of what you have. Make it a meal and be nourished by it. Sometimes you're nourished by the absence of things. Again, you're eating lunch meat sandwiches and, what are those dinners that you put in the oven? Those were treats.
Oh, TV dinners.
TV dinners. That was a treat. I remember being grateful for the flavors, not for the portions. As girls, we got less than the boys. That's how my father ran it. You'd get this much, they'd get this much. It didn't matter if you were still hungry.
What piece of the chicken did you get?
We would be allowed the wing and the leg. And a lot of times, not the leg. It just depends on what he didn't take. But
I was the youngest, so sometimes you got a little piece. You're like, you don't even know what is this?
What is that exactly? Is that the hind part?
What is that?
All I know is that we used to go to church, we spend all day there, and they have the whiting fish with the bread, of course, soaked with grease, and literally, we'd have to share one between three of us. You're starving, but you get your little piece of bread and that fish, and you eat it slow. Now I can get whatever I want, Michele, and I literally. That's one of the things that is weird. If you ask my brothers and sisters, we all kind of hoard food a bit.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, even
in
food
in your pantry, or do you?
Buy in bulk.
Do you have a little squirrel purse where you always have something in your bag right now?
Yes, yes, I do.
Do you have a protein bag and a protein bar in your bag?
Always. If you ask, Erika E, she gonna pull out something and be like, here, look.
Jar of peanut butter?
Jar of peanut butter, everything. And you know what? That's
Can
what
of
it
tuna
was.
Fish?
Can of tuna fish. You got 6 kids. My mother had all sorts of stuff in her purse. I go to set with every bag in the world. My ex-husband used to say, where are you going? You look like a bag camel. And I was just like, just in case. I have this feeling of not being able, but because there's no stability. There is no home in my heart. There literally is just wherever I am is where it's at. And so in that kitchen, you talked about, I see a lot of poverty. That kitchen was infested with roaches. Infested with roaches. And my mother tried her hardest. She did. We closed everything. She would do this bomb, this bomb that you'd set off, and then you'd walk away. Everybody would get out the house, and then the roach was supposed to come out and be all killed from wherever their hidey holes were. She'd do it. We'd come back, and some of the other ones would be dying. Whatever, we'd stomp them and get them, sweep up, wipe off everything, disinfect. And then 2 nights later, you see these roaches still walking. And my mother was just like, I can't. She'd tell you now, she said, I don't know what happened. And then she said, Erika, I finally figured it out. Years later, it used to haunt me. She said those floors that were over the ground, they would just go aground.
Yeah,
wait it out, and then they'd come out. There was no way she could ever stop them.
But you tell this story, and I keep going back to the woman who put the red curtains up. That's so much pride, right? And so to be such a prideful person and a person who spoke with elocution and sang opera in German,
yes,
dealing with roaches and trying to protect her kids from roaches had to just be, so difficult for her. And it
was
such a psychological wound almost.
It was, because I think she thought about how the white people saw us. We had a lot of white visitors, One time we came home from a trip where, I don't know, my parents were preaching or something, and it was for a couple of days, and all our furniture was gone. And the white people would come and taken it and put in new furniture, but it was all white. And my mother looked at it and was horrified. For one thing, she's thinking, oh God, what did they think of my first furniture, which was up on blocks, these cement blocks. And, we did our best to make bookshelves. My brother, who was the Philadelphia cop now, was into decorating then. I didn't know that, but he would always, every 2 months, he'd change the room around to make it fresh. That's what he loved to do. But all that was gone. They put that white furniture in there. And she's thinking, I got 6 children. What do I need with white furniture?
I'm thinking that. White furniture with 6 kids?
She said, what? And guess what? Then they couldn't keep up the payments. They didn't pay for it. And they had to come take it away. And she said, there I was with now no furniture. And because they had thrown out the other. And now, so we're going out on the road because we used to go and people would throw out stuff and bring in a couple of things so we could sit on. Yeah, that's the type of person. She was horrified that they saw her and yet had to be grateful. And of course, teary. Oh, thank you so much. They're so proud of themselves. But then they themselves had to take back the furniture. Yeah, it was tough.
So you have survival instincts deep down.
People talk about kitchens and stuff being places where it was warmth, and there was warmth. My mother it was always, the pipes were always freezing. And so you couldn't cut on the water. And so she would try to, do her best to thaw out, the pipes maybe in the kitchen and she'd bring a pot of boiling water. Oh, no, she didn't. She didn't thaw out the pipes. What I'm talking about, she'd go out and scoop some snow into a pot, put it on the heater and then warm it up, make it hot, then put it in the bathroom. You could take a cup. And that's how you washed yourself up. We didn't even have a stopper. It's so funny. I haven't thought about this thing ever. I haven't talked to anybody about this. You take a paper towel, not a paper towel, but a cloth towel, stick it in the stopper, and that would stop the water. And then you would do a bath like this. We only got a bath once a week, which was usual. And my mother would open up the stove to heat up the house. And if you were cold, you'd go in the kitchen and stand by the stove. This was like, it just seemed like somebody lit a house on the prairie. I mean, like we were like in Nowheresville.
Yeah, but people think of Arizona as heat, as desert, but deserts get very cold at night, especially when you're in high elevations up by the mountains. So yeah,
but we weren't in the desert. We were in the mountains.
Yeah.
We had 6 feet of snow. We have 4 seasons a year. It's a dark city. So it's at Lowell's Observatory up there. It's got skiing. It's like snow dance. I mean, yeah, it's like Sundance. It has 4 distinct the icicles were this big.
Oh,
they
Lord.
were 6 feet and they would and they would just fall off. They would kill you if they struck you. It was so big. And those fir trees and those alpines. And, that's where Bigfoot is. We're in the mountains. It's so high.
Bigfoot?
Michele.
Is there really a Bigfoot?
Yes, there really is a Bigfoot. There's a Bigfoot there. I didn't see him, but he likes to be in the mountains. But they were so high that, to this day, runners go up there to train for the Olympics because it's very thin air. And up there, you really get in the hard snow. It's one of the highest places you could be in America.
Well, so there is a metaphor there. Then I'm going to ask you about your recipe because I know I got to let you go. But there's a metaphor there because you were raised in the mountains where the altitude is high. And many people have a difficult time with altitude. But people who train in altitude, when they descend and they are, living in spaces that are closer to sea level, they're hardy. They're sturdy. Real. That's you.
Come on.
That is you. That is you. So, you were out there running track in high altitudes, living in high altitudes, dodging icicles in high altitudes.
Exactly. And warming ourselves up by the stove. The kitchen becomes a place that I have to say that my mother tried her best to bring us different cuisines and create different experiences for Hawaiian food, all these things. It wasn't just a place of poverty. It was a place where poverty was apparent because of maybe how little sometime there was to eat, but the food was rich in flavor, rich in meaning. And she tried to bring us the world through those doors.
Come on, honor to Sammy. Now, we always get to Miss Sammy, and let me not call her by her first name.
Oh, you can, no, please.
No.
She wants you to call her Susu.
Okay.
She likes to be called Susu. susu.
I
She'd be your
like
susu,
that.
which means
I like
grandmother
that.
in
I like
Africa. She
that.
loves that.
I
Yeah.
like that.
Yes.
We always get a recipe from our guests that means something to them. What are you sharing with us?
I'm sharing my mom, Sammy Susu Alexander's crispy tuna salmon croquettes.
Are we using canned tuna and salmon?
You are.
And what does she use to bind them together?
She uses eggs and breadcrumbs, panko, or crushed saltine crackers.
Okay. All right. Do you ever use Ritz crackers? I know some people use Ritz crackers in their croquettes. Okay.
And she would do it and make like 6 of them. We think we live in high after hog. We split it. And then again, you'd have your little croquette. And she'd feel really good. She said you could eat it with, of course, eggs and toast for breakfast or alongside salad or soup with rice and vegetable maybe for dinner. And or enjoy on the snack on their own, she said, for children. And it's a high protein sort of thing. But she would make it for us as a sort of special treat.
A fried egg on top of a croquette is... That's good stuff.
God. I can't wait. Why can't I be invited over to your house?
You can. We'll figure out how to get you to the kitchen and we'll cook together.
I'd love it. Let's do that.
Let's definitely do that. Let's definitely do that.
I
have loved this conversation, as I knew I would.
Thank you. I love being asked these questions because now my mind is starting to trigger. There's all sorts of feelings I have. There's a feeling sometimes of overwhelm and sadness, and then also real victory when I think about how well my parents did with these huge obstacles to raise 6 children, decent children. None of us ever gone to jail or arrested, good, decent citizens. And that was by willpower and good fortune, and they'd say God.
And they worked hard. They put a lot of themselves into you, and I would say that the best of them lives in you.
Ooh, thank you. Another bar.
I have love this conversation. Love you. Look forward to cooking with you sometime soon.
Michele Norris, thank you very much for the opportunity.
I hope you write a book, because your stories are beautiful and they're bountiful. And I think that there's a lot of them. So,
thank you. I'm writing something about my mother. It's called Go Brick. And that right there was her nickname from her garden. And I hope to put some of her life in there that she recognizes, but also expand it a bit and make it otherworldly, like the way I received it.
I love it. I love it. Thanks for being with us. I knew that was going to be a great conversation, and it was just beyond wonderful to hear about Erika's origin story and how she feels both sorrow and victory when she looks back on it, about her character, Maxine, about all the projects that she's done, and to see how she shows up in the world and how she carries all the things she learned in that kitchen with her. This is a great conversation. Now, I just want to remind you that we want to hear your stories also. Our inbox is always open for you to record yourself and send us either a recording or a video with thoughts on your mama's recipe, the kitchens that you grew up in, maybe some thoughts on some of the previous episodes. You can send either that audio recording or a video to YMK at highergroundproductions.com for a chance for your voice to be heard on one of the episodes, or maybe your video to be used on YouTube, since you can also see the episodes there. If you want to try making those crispy tuna salmon croquettes, and I hope you do, make sure to check out the website, yourmamaskitchen.com. At the website, you will see all the recipes from all the previous episodes. There's a lot of good stuff there. For everyone at home, thanks for watching us. Thanks for listening. Thanks for coming back, because I hope you do come back next week, because we're always serving up something delicious. Until then, be bountiful.